Well, good evening. It's Thursday, September 20th, 6:30, and I welcome everyone to the final public budget hearing for the Village of Royal Palm Beach. At this time, could you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Diane, please show that all members of council are present.
Yes, ma'am.
And being that this is the third Thursday of September 20th, it marks the last meeting we have this summer. When we come back together again, it will be autumn. So the seasons move on. Don't know how much the weather is going to change, right? But as usual, time is just flying by. So tonight is a public hearing to finalize our 2018-2019 budget. And I'll start out with item number 1, to announce that the proposed operating millage rate necessary to fund the budget is 5.86% above the rollback millage rate of 1.8137 mils. I want to announce that the proposed operating millage rate is 1.9200 for the general fund, which is the same rate we had last year. And with that, I'm going to ask Stan to give us an update if there's anything to update. If there are no changes from the last public budget hearing, then I guess there's nothing more to
Thank you,
update.
Mr. Mayor. There have been no changes to the budget document since the last public hearing.
Okay, so we're in good shape.
We are.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to open up for comments from the public regarding our budget. And I have no comment cards, but if anyone who's here who would like to come up and speak, please come up. Now would be the time. No? Okay. With that, then, I will close public comment on the budget this evening and go to item 5, which is a council adoption of the final millage rate of 1.92 for the general fund and the adoption of resolution number 18-26. It's a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, adopting the final millage rate for the Village of Royal Palm Beach for the fiscal year commencing on October 1, 2018, and ending September 30th, 2019, providing an effective date and for other purposes. So if there are any comments from members on council, if not, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve resolution 18-26.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that resolution number 18-26, which is the resolution of a millage rate, was approved 5-0. Item 6 is the adoption of final budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. Adoption of the resolution number 18-27, a resolution of the Village Council, Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, adopting its final budget for fiscal year 2018-2019, providing the budget hereby adopted may be adjusted or modified by subsequent resolution of the Village Council under certain circumstances, providing conflicts clause and severability clause, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. And if there are no questions or comments from members on council, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve adoption of resolution number 18-27.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? If you have no opposed, Diane, please let the record show that the 2018-2019 budget resolution 18-27 was approved 5-0. Unless there are any questions or comments from members on council, I will close this public hearing on our 2018-2019 budget, and we will adjourn and reconvene as the Village Council for our regular Village Council meeting. Okay. Non-agenda item? Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to start out with reports. And I have a report update this evening for everyone. Let me get this up in my notes. Today is the third Thursday of the month and the first meeting of the Palm Beach County Transportation Planning Agency, AKA the MPO. It was quite a lengthy meeting because it was our first meeting. We had kind of recessed during the summer, and it was our first meeting for this year since our last meeting. And I want to cover a couple of items, a few items that I think is important to share with the members and council and with our citizens in general. They announced that next week is National Rail Safety Week. So I guess we're supposed to make sure that we really operate safely and focus on that. And when we're going across railroad crossings and that sort of thing, as we know, we always hear about accidents happening. So this is to get a focus around that. If you're in, in the area where there are trains operating, just be more cognizant of what's going on. They asked us to announce, and this is relevant to us, on October 10th is the Walk to School Day. Now, why it's relevant to us here is because the county has picked certain schools to highlight this throughout the county, and one of the schools they've picked is our own H.L. Johnson. So to the extent that you can participate in that, please go on the website. I think the walk is at 10:30 in the morning on October 10th, but just get that word out, and it's nice that they picked one of our schools to be one of the places where they want to highlight this event. All right, there was a resolution adopted that authorizes and I spoke about this before, the formal interlocal agreement with the 4 cities, which we are one of, who are participating in providing the $300,000 loan to the new independent TPA once that transition happens. So that was officially approved today by the full board, and the 4 cities that are involved in that are Jupiter, Boca Raton, and Palm Beach Gardens, and of course the Village of Royal Palm Beach. So that transaction now has been concluded, and as stipulated in the interlocal agreement, we'll just move forward with that as defined. FDOT did a presentation this morning for an update to our 2040 long-range transportation plan, better known as the LRTP. It was a rather lengthy presentation, but the crux of it was that they've done an assessment that what they had in the long-range plan for widening of roads, in particular the Florida Turnpike, that they underestimated the usage requirements, and they're coming back and they're asking for a resolution to change the plan. Now, translation, they're coming back and saying they need to put more money into that because they need to put more lanes. They're going for places where there are 3 lanes. They're going, instead of going from 4 to 6, they're going from 4 to 8. Places where there are 8 lanes, they're going from 8 to 10. And they're looking at some point to introduce something called express lanes. And the thing about the express lanes is if you use the express lane, you're paying additional toll. All right? All very interesting. The bottom line is that they wanted to have approved an additional $750 million for this additional expansion on the Turnpike. And the vote to do this was 16 yes and 4 no's, and we were one of the 4 no's. Rationale being that this is just perpetuating a strategy that says we're only focusing on spending our dollars to put more cars on the road, as opposed to spending some of those dollars and changing our strategy for solutions that we could put in place that don't require you to have a car, right? Some kind of multimodal transportation capabilities, light rail, small buses, whatever the array of options are. We're not focusing on that. We're focusing on spending, almost $1 billion here for more roads for cars. This is something that I've spoke about to the citizens in this council before, and we've discussed this, and it's something that we just have to pursue. We have to get a different mindset of thinking. Now look at this. This is a 40-year long-range plan, which means that we're locking ourselves into this mindset for the next 40 years that, we're just going to spend money for more cars on the road. And so for that reason, myself and 3 other cities said, no, we're not supporting this. And it sent a message, and there's a message that we have to continue to work on until we get the people who are doing this planning at FDOT and at the Federal Highway Administration to step back and say, we need to change our thinking. We need to open up our thinking, and we need to redirect some of the dollars that we're spending to other modes of transportation and not just for cars. So that was a lengthy event today, a lot of conversation and questioning on that.
It was on the Turnpike or on 95?
This was for the Turnpike.
Really?
Yeah. We already know what they're doing on 95. This is the Turnpike, yes. Okay, the TPA approved today their 2018, 2019, I guess, strategic plan, which is something that was started about a year ago, where it was determined that the board needed to have a plan. You know, what are we looking to accomplish this year? What are we looking to accomplish next year? What are the areas that we should be focusing on? I was fortunate enough to be part of, we had a subcommittee that I was part of to work with the executive director on what the new strategic plan should include. And we got a couple of new items that were included in the plan. By the way, you should all be receiving that in your emails, the actual document, if you haven't seen it yet.
Got it.
You should be getting it. One of the things that we were able to include is this notion of let's include more multimodal corridor studies. We're not going to move the dial on this subject if if our planning apparatus from a TPA standpoint doesn't engage into the concept of what are some of the options we should look at. And you start by looking at the different corridors going east-west or north-south and figuring out what are the options there other than cars that could be considered, all right, in terms of a multimodal solution. So that was included. The other item that I just want to mention I was included is, as I've been talking about, the TPA is transitioning to become an independent agency. One of the benefits of that will be is they will now be able to apply for independent grants from the Federal Highway Administration that right now, the way they're structured, they couldn't do that. So that's going to open up an opportunity, hopefully, to go for different funding sources that today that they aren't able to apply for. Here's your book. Let me have your book. They handed out today, was a presentation from Palmtran, all right? As we have been talking about, Palmtran has been working on for almost a year, I guess, on something called what's it called again? Hold on.
RPM.
Yeah, route performance maximization. Translation? They changed the routes. No, I'm being a little facetious, but they spent a lot of time. They actually did run around and did town hall meetings. They had one here. We didn't have a lot of folks show up, but they came here to do that as well, and to get input from the citizens across the county on what they could do to better utilize the resources they have, maximize what they have, as opposed to just thinking about trying to spend more dollars to add. When they're not looking at where they're spending the money intelligently now, where can they have improvements. So they have revamped pretty much all of the routes across Palm Beach County. They've eliminated some routes. They've changed the timing of when some of these routes are going to be running. And they've just published this. They have a book that's out, and it's up on their website. We're going to be getting books in the village to make them available at the Village Hall. Here are their new routes. And they're looking for feedback. All right, they're looking to get feedback on things they didn't think of, or things that they've missed. They've stopped with some routes that were, they're picking up, they're spending $250,000 to pick up 5 people. Those kind of anomalies they've tried to address. They're adding more express buses on some of the main lines. They really have made an effort to try to improve and increase the level of service with the same core set of resources that they had. But they'll be looking for feedback from the citizens across the county on, things they need to adjust or assumptions that were made maybe weren't validated properly or something to that effect. The new route structure will go into effect September 30th. Some of these routes for the first 3 days will be free to give people a chance to sample them. I don't know what the routes are that are free, but take a look at their website. And if you got some spare time, you could just ride around on the buses to figure out how does this thing really work, right? Who knows? You might find a route that now you no longer have to get in your car and drive to go someplace. This new route and the timing of it might work for you. But something to look at.
Did they happen to mention, I know that you could track where the bus is? So
They
you know,
spoke
like,
about that, yeah.
okay.
They have two apps, either for
Like to make a reservation?
iPhones or Androids.
Okay.
Where you can, you can get on that app and it'll tell you where the bus is, so you know how much longer. They even have something on their website, I don't know if it's active yet, where if you're gonna go from point A to point B, on a given day, or even further to point C, you can go in there and put that in. It'll give you the route that you need to take, which buses you need to catch, where you catch them, what time the buses are gonna be there. I think if that works out, that in itself is a great improvement. So they're working at it, they're trying, so I give them a lot of credit for that. As I said, they want to improve travel time, more direct service, extended hours for selected routes, and free Wi-Fi on all the buses.
Wow. There you go. That'll do it.
There you go, there's one.
That'll do it.
So that was pretty much the highlight of some of the key items that were discussed today at the TPA. And with that, I'm going to turn it over.
Commissioner? Good evening, everyone. I had the honor of representing the village over at 9/11 Remembrance that they did over at Renaissance Charter School at Palms West. So thank you very much to them for putting that on, and also H.L. Johnson did one as well. So it's really nice that they did a remembrance as well as honoring all of our first responders. And we also have a new business opening up, Love to Play, which is an indoor playground, and they're opening up at the Bell Shopping Plaza on Southern and State Road 7. So it's really nice to see another mom and pop business open up in the village.
Did you say mom and pop?
Mom and pop.
Okay.
It's a husband and wife, technically.
No, we get it. It's a small business and family owned and, okay. Richard?
The only report I have is, I heard a rumor that the youngest member of our council just so happens to get a year older today. And I wanted to say happy birthday to the vice mayor. I won't embarrass you too much by singing because that would be awful. Oh, yeah, okay. I just wanted to say happy birthday. No, I would never do that.
Okay. Jeff?
So we had the first full meeting of the Education Advisory Board. We just newly constituted that board. And one of the initiatives that we asked that the board take on is for the chairman to identify a primary thrust, a theme for the year. And what Dr. Bill Talamer chose was actions to increase parent involvement in the schools. And in particular, what he picked was the Watchdogs program. Now, I think we've talked about that before, and Watchdogs really got started at Royal Palm Beach Elementary. And the dogs part stands for Dad of Great Students, Dads of Great Students. And the idea is to get the dads involved. And they've had a lot of success. They've had a couple hundred dads signing up at Royal Palm Beach Elementary on a regular basis. And what they sign up for is a full day in the school to help out wherever and however they can. Well, the kids love it. The dads love it. Works out really great. It's a great example of an initiative that actually does get the parents more involved in the school. So there's going to be more of that coming up. At that first meeting, we also had the Royal Palm Beach High School principal, Dr. Jesus Armas, present a little bit of a history and back in time view of the high school as it is right now. And over the 8 years that he's been there, he talked about how the school started off with a graduation rate of about 70%. 2017, the graduation rate was just over 90%. It's a pretty big achievement for a Title I school and for some of the challenges that schools often have. He made an estimate that this year, 2018, this past year, would actually exceed that, be over 91%. So they're doing some really good things over there. We know they got an IB program. He talked about all of the additional choice programs that they added over the years. But the main thing he talked about was the vision that they have for a safe and respectful environment, how that's very conducive to learning. And the absence of that, of course, gets in the way of learning. And keeping good teachers on board comes through having really good programs, really great support. And I think Royal Palm Beach High School has those things going right now. It also helps if you pay the teachers well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, right now in this country, the state of Florida ranks 44th in the per student, per pupil allocation of funds to education. What's really bad about that is it's down from 36, which is what it was a couple of years ago. So it's moving in the wrong direction, which is basically what prompted another presentation that was done. And I've got copies of handouts for the fact sheets that were passed out to all of the members of the Education Advisory Board. But we were also briefed by the district staff on this upcoming referendum item for increasing the school ad valorem tax by 1 mil, which is $1 per $1,000 of assessed value of property. This lists all of the different applications of those additional funds that would come in. This would be a 4-year proposal for that increase. At the end of the 4-year period, it would sunset. The additional money would be used to, this lays it out pretty much in good detail, 650 art, music, PE, health, choice, and career education teachers, as well as it would add more school police officers, safety security equipment. It would be used to hire additional mental health professionals, school counselors, and it would be used to improve teacher pay for experienced and highly effective teachers. So there are more of these flyers around. We'll try to get more to put them out in the community in various places so everybody can become informed about what the intent here is, what the use of that money would be. As with the penny sales tax, there will be an independent citizen oversight committee to make sure that the money is actually being applied to what it was advertised to go to. So the sad thing is that our state legislature over the last 3 years has consistently reduced the millage that the state applies to our schools, and so that puts our schools in a position of, one would look at it as kind of an unfunded mandate if you want to do the right things. In any case, as elected officials, we cannot advocate for or against a referendum item, and we're not doing that. We're just sharing the information here as the school district did with us. One other thing I wanted to mention is the Florida League of Cities Legislative Committee meetings that are held every year began last Friday, as a matter of fact. And the purpose of that group is to determine among representatives from all 413 now, I think, cities, what we have in Florida, what are the legislative issues that are of greatest interest to us, either to support or oppose based upon efforts that were initiated last year. And one of the concerns has been consistently the state's attempt to preempt the authority that the local municipalities have to make decisions for us. And so that's called home rule, and the defense of that is, of course, one of the primary tasks, and it'll still be the #1 priority for the Florida League of Cities as they engage with the legislature again this year. But each one of these committees, and there are 5 different committees, addresses their own set of actions, and is interesting in conversation with our mayor. It seemed like transportation would be a good committee for me to get on, given the interest that we have, and so I did. And the good news is we are certainly talking about transportation, and one of the key facets of anything is funding, and that is one of the issues. And interestingly enough, we're in a situation now where the more efficient our cars become, the less gas we use, the less money is generated through the gas tax, and therefore less money is available to maintain the roads, which, by the way, haven't changed. So we're kind of swimming upstream, basically, in that regard. So there's a real question about, what can be done here to adequately fund road improvements, road maintenance, and that type of thing. And then I brought up the question of, well, what about multimodal systems?
Wow.
And I guess I got a look from the chairperson. It was like, well, that's not on the agenda. Well, that's the idea. It's not on the agenda. We need to put it on the agenda. And so working with the mayor, TPA, hopefully we'll push in that direction. And the more organizations, the more initiatives you have pushing in the direction of, let's figure out what we can do other than encouraging more people to drive more often on the roads to provide some kind of alternative that would really work, seems to be the right thing to do. So we'll stay after it. It wasn't terribly gratifying initially, but nothing good comes about with a difficult issue like this without staying after it. So that completes my report.
And as I said, I'll look to work with your organization this coming year to do what we can to address that issue. It'll take a concerted effort. Thank you.
It will. Yep.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. So last week, a few of us had the opportunity to go to the Central Palm Beach Chamber luncheon on a healthcare economic topic, and interestingly enough, it was all on mental health, as this becomes more of a topic in front of the headlines here, whether it's within the schools, whether it's in our jail system, whether it's personal responsibility. But interestingly enough, Sheriff Bradshaw was there talking about mental health. Why would Sheriff Bradshaw be talking about mental health? Because the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office is the #1 provider of healthcare, mental health services in the county. It's astounding, more so than any of our mental health facilities. So that was really interesting. And although there's no real solutions, they are working on trying to come up with better ways to treat our incarcerated who are in there as a result of mental health. So that segues into another meeting that I had with Palm Health Foundation. They've changed their name. They're no longer Palm Health Care Foundation. They're Palm Health Foundation. And they do a program called Train the Brain. And they use the entire month of October to provide all different kinds of opportunities for folks to learn more about brain health. And they have a Take the Brain pledge to get a fit brain, and you can go on their website. They have a special website called trainthebrainpbc.org. So in addition to monthly programming and the personal pledge, there's also chock full of resources and mental health providers and resources. And they're doing this all month long. I encourage everybody to go on the website, Train the Brain. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to call their office, which is 561-833-6333. And then in honor of Councilwoman Selena's birthday, it is National Pepperoni Pizza Day. So I hope you can celebrate in that way.
Well with peanut M&Ms, by the way.
There you go.
Who comes up with these days?
I don't know.
She just made it up.
I didn't. I looked. It's on the website.
Pizza
It's an
industry
official.
lobby.
It's an official day.
Okay.
Thank you.
That it? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Can't top that.
Train the Brain. Let me see that.
Top that.
No report, Mayor.
No report? Okay.
Thank you.
I have a short update for you all. This is in follow-up to a meeting the village manager, the village engineer, and myself had with the Loxahatchee Groves. Well, their water control district, but then also the town. I know Ray has updated you all on this. Just a little refresher. The Loxahatchee Groves Water Control District was an independent taxing district for a very, very long time. In June of this year, the voters in that district decided to convert it to a dependent district, and by doing that, it became part of the town of Loxahatchee Groves. The problem with doing that is we have about 8 properties within the village of Royal Palm Beach that rely on infrastructure for drainage that is owned by the water control district. So none of this, of course, was handled before the referendum where they converted into a dependent district. So now we're trying to unravel this and work it out. We met with the representatives for the town of Loxahatchee Groves. We all made a commitment to each other at that meeting that we are going to continue working on this together to find a resolution that works for everybody. At the request of the town attorney, he asked me to update you all tonight on this and emphasize that commitment, and that they will continue providing the drainage services to those properties and let those properties use their infrastructure while we are trying to work this out. In return, we are allowing them to continue draining through the village of Royal Palm Beach while we work this out. So we'll be updating you, and hopefully we'll have a resolution soon.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's good. All right, so that concludes our reports. At this time, is there anyone here who has a petition they'd like to present to the council? All right, seeing none, I'm closing then the acceptance of petitions. Is there anyone here who would like to make a public statement on an item that's not on the agenda or an item that's on a consent agenda. And I do have a comment card here for an item that's not on the agenda, and that is Gina Levesque? Levac, I'm sorry. Come on up.
Good evening, all. I'm Gina Levesque from the Palm Beach County Commission on Ethics. I am the liaison with the town with our office. If you have any questions, problems, issues that come up, you are free to call our office to get any information you need. If you have anything special that needs to happen, you can come through me and I will make sure that I run out here and get everything that you need handled. I handed all the commissioners and staff a copy of our guide to the Code of Ethics. This one was published in 2016, so it is the most updated version. There are 3 sections to it with the highlights and the quick reference guide for the advisory boards, and then the actual Code of Ethics. Our office has put together a list of changes that we would like to see happen within the code, and we are consulting with the county attorney's office to try and work out some of those things, and then we will present it to our board, and then they will go ahead and try and see what changes they would like implemented, and then that will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners. They'll form another board, and it'll take several months before any changes happen to the code. However, it is what it is. Wheels of justice turn, but they turn very slowly. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions or needs anything, please
Are
feel
you able
free.
to share a high level of some of the changes that you're looking to put in place?
It's just minor changes with some of the tweaks in the code with various little things that may have been left out
Okay.
or,
Kind of
it's all
fine-tuning.
minor, correct,
Okay.
fine tuning.
And we are able to get more copies of this for
Yes,
all the members on our different boards that we have, that sort of
yes.
thing?
When we first published these in 2016, I sent out copies to all the municipalities
Okay.
for their various commissions and boards, but feel free at any time, if anybody needs them, feel free to call and I'll get you some more. Inside the cover, I've put my business card so that you're able to contact me. And along with that, on the back cover, we have the top 10 ethics rules that we have also implemented into a small card that we tend to hand out so that people on boards and the like can have a good idea of the top 10
Okay.
things that they should focus on.
Okay. Any questions? Well, continue to doing the fine job that you're all doing, and thank you very much for your
Thank you.
update. If anyone else would like to comment on an item not on the agenda or the consent agenda, now would be the time. Seeing none, I'm closing public comment then on non-agenda items and on the consent agenda. And with that, I'm going to ask Diane to read us the consent agenda.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Number 1, approval of the minutes of the first public budget hearing and council regular meeting of September 6, 2018. 2, adoption of resolution number 1828, a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, adopting a revised schedule of fees and charges, specifically repealing Resolution 1727, providing that this schedule of fees and charges shall be available for inspection at all times at the Village Hall during regular business hours, providing an effective date and for other purposes. 3, approval and authorization to renew annual software licensing and software maintenance support with Superior Public Sector Incorporated in the amount of $60,000. 4, approval and authorization for the village manager to execute third addendum to foreclosure registry services agreement by and between Community Champions Corporation and the Village of Royal Palm Beach.
Any comments, members of council? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I'd like to pull
Okay,
item number 2.
okay. I'll look for a motion minus item number 2.
Motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Diane, please let the record show that agenda item, the consent agenda was approved minus item number 2, 5-0. Jeff?
Mr. Mayor, most of the changes that are in this schedule of fees and charges seem to have to do with the expanded cultural center. And in talking with the village manager over the past couple of weeks, I've gotten the impression that this is kind of an indirect way to get to this, but there's been a discussion about whether to rename the expanded cultural center. And so it seemed like this might be a good opportunity to just put that out there and see what the council thinks about the possibilities of either keeping the name Cultural Center or perhaps considering something else. So would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. That's actually correct. We've been talking about different names for the last 3 weeks. We knew that the Cultural Center opening up before the end of the year and needing to create these new rates and look at how that facility will be used. We do think it's going to be used more as a banquet and business center. At least that's what we hope that it would be used for. That's how it's constructed and designed. And we've I tried a whole bunch of different names on you guys over the last 3 weeks, looking for some kind of response, or excitement, and I think we went in a full circle and ended up with Cultural Center really being the best name for it. And it still is our largest performing arts venue. When it does have a stage, when it's set up as a performing arts venue, it seats 640 people, 642, I think. It does have the capability when it's completed to sit close to 300 in the grand ballroom and 130 in the smaller banquet room that for events or for sit-down table events. So when we're looking at all that and looking at it being used for that, we did come up with it. The rooms really need to be named. It would help us in just telling people that the events at the Cultural Center. So we are proposing, and that's on your latest draft. We are calling the 300 table sit-down seating area a grand ballroom. It does have 6 large chandeliers in it, and it is set up to be a grand ballroom. So that one we're naming the grand ballroom. The other 4 rooms, as you remember, we have a large banquet room that set up for sit-down dinners would hold 100, and you got 160 written here. Or that room can be broken up into 4 different rooms, and what we were looking at doing there is naming the rooms like we put on our original comprehensive plan back in the late 70s, early 80s, where when they did that comprehensive plan, they broke the town up into kind of 4 quadrants. The original quadrants were the colony was already constructed, and then they had the Willows, La Mancha, Hawthorne, and Crestwood. Hawthorne turned into Crestwood, so what we're proposing is to name the 4 rooms the Colony, Willows, La Mancha, and Crestwood. So that will give them some kind of formality and name the different rooms. We also, in doing this, our sporting center banquet room is pretty much booked up for events on the weekends, and we were kind of questioning the sporting center was the name we came up when we thought we were going to have kayak rental out of there and bicycle rentals out of there and things like that, and that's not the way that's evolving. It's more evolving into that top room being used as a banquet room. So we've proposed in here that it would be called the Sunset Banquet Room at Commons, which it is beautiful sunsets from that room.
We're not offering sunrise events?
We looked at that because it's a 360-degree room, and it could be sunrise or sunset.
And now it's air conditioned.
So we studied the two, and we think the sunsets are much prettier.
Okay, all right. As long as you put some sun in your phone.
He didn't get up that hour.
We also spent a lot of time in coming up with the room rates. We believe these room rates are very competitive. We do have a resident and nonprofit rate, and then we have a non-resident and for-profit rate. We kind of the cultural center we'll be open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. We broke them up into 2 6-hour shifts, kind of a day one and a night one, and people can rent either one. If they want to rent the whole day, they get the hours considerably cheaper. The rates go from anywhere from $150 to $300, depending on whether it's resident or for profit. We think what we have here is a good start. We did hire a new employee to manage the facility. She will be starting Monday, and we're ready to get going with it. It's going to be wonderful and beautiful facility when it's completed. It was designed to be designed under a 4-star resort treatment, and it'll be a beautiful facility when it's completed.
When will that be?
Good question.
We are taking reservations for its use starting New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve?
Yeah, we are taking I think we took. Did we already take it?
Well, I gotta call him back.
So the Young at Hearts are not going to be able to have their Christmas luncheon there?
Oh, I don't know that yet.
Okay.
I mean, Chris is obviously have the contract with them. They have a lot to do, and they're working hard.
Okay.
What's that?
We could put Chris on the spot and bring him up,
Lou, you
no,
you want to add anything to this?
No, just like the manager said, it's going to be a beautiful facility, and we're already taking calls of people that want to rent the facility, and unfortunately, up to this point, it's like we don't even have rates yet. We don't plan on taking reservation or booking the facility until after the holidays anyway. We planned that a while ago to make sure we get comfortable in the facility ourselves. But we're looking forward to it, and so is the public. They keep asking questions as they, riding by.
Right. So one of the reasons that I brought this up was, in addition to walking through the facility as it is right now, which you have to imagine the chandeliers at this point because they're not there. But it's a spectacular layout. It really is, and it's very, very well done. But it's kind of interesting that when people talk to me about it, they want to know three things actually. They want to know, when will it be ready to open? When will you start taking reservations? And what are you going to call it? And so that was one of the reasons when talking with Ray about this. And the consensus, totally unscientific, that I've gotten so far is everybody knows it as a cultural center. And so when Ray mentioned that he came back around to that, you all came back around to that, thinking, okay, that's good. That's probably good. So anyway, it was worth sharing that with everyone. It's going to be a fantastic facility, though, no doubt about it. So
When I talk to people about it, I refer to it as the new cultural center. I don't know if that's a name change thought, but I've also called it Cultural Center 2.0, right? Being the 21st century and how we brand things. I think it's something, we can leave it open. We can come back sometime down the road if we think we have an idea of what might be a good name for it. And who knows what'll come to us after we open it up and people start using it. And,
I'd just like to let you know that, the new facility manager comes on board on Monday, and it turns out she's actually a village resident.
get out of here.
And the experience that she brings, over 10 years experience with the Hyatt and the Marriott and Disney. She actually put on banquets for Disney World.
Nice.
well, she'll be comfortable in this facility when it gets
She's excited.
decked
She's
out.
looking forward to it.
It's that quality. It really is. So
Yeah.
good.
Excellent.
Well then, I'm ready to make a motion to approve consent agenda item number 2.
Just wanted to ask.
One other question.
sorry.
I just wanted to ask the village attorney if any of these things are fees, because like we said, this is something we're setting and we haven't had it built or had experience with it yet. It's just a matter of passing a single resolution if we want to amend or change one of the fees, or something in here is not working, right?
Absolutely. So, yeah, if something isn't working, then council can change it by a simple resolution. There's no other requirement for you guys.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Motion to approve consent agenda item number 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Diane, please let the record show that consent agenda item number 2 was approved 5-0. And with that, we'll move to the regular agenda. Agenda item R1 is a public hearing for approval of application number 18-0076, an application by the Potter's House of West Palm Beach, and in the adoption of resolution number 18-24 confirming council action. The applicant is seeking a modification to a council-imposed condition for a previously approved church or place of worship, and to allow such use to expand and relocate within the Royal Plaza South Shopping Center located at the northeast corner of Royal Palm Beach Boulevard.
And sorry, Mayor, we forgot your asterisk on the agenda. This is quasi-judicial, so I do need to swear in staff and the applicant. If anyone from the applicant is going to be speaking tonight, if you could raise your hand for me, just in case if council has questions. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And now I'll turn to council and ask if anyone has any ex parte disclosures that they need to make at this time.
None.
None.
Okay, thank you.
No asterisk. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is a request by the applicant to modify council-imposed conditions, specifically Condition 1 of the development order and Resolution 1215 to increase the square footage and occupy a different bay. The applicant is requesting to move from the current bay to Bay 298, a 3,300 square foot bay, allowing for an additional 5 seats for the worship center. Bay 298 is highlighted here on this slide. The staff is recommending approval of this application, and I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Would the applicant like to make any comments? No comments? All right, I do not have any comment cards on this agenda item, but if anybody here would like to comment, now would be the time. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment for agenda item R1 and take comments from members on council. If no comments from members on council, I'll look for a motion.
Move to approve agenda item R1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R1 was approved 5-0. Agenda item R2 is also a public hearing to consider application number 17-0063, an application by K. Carvanian Cypress Key, and adoption of resolution 17-28 confirming council action. The applicant is seeking a final plat approval for approximately 9.82 acre parcel of land located at the northwest corner of Cypress Head Avenue and Southern Boulevard.
Thank you, Mayor. Like you stated, this is an application for final plat approval for Cypress Key Town Center, a 9.820 acre parcel of land located northwest corner of Cypress Head Avenue and Southern Boulevard, within a portion of the overall 35.23 acre Cypress Key development. The land being platted lies within the mixed-use development zoning district. The applicant is proposing to plat the 9.82 acres into 4 separate parcels. The final plat is consistent with the proposed site plan for the commercial portion of the site. Staff is recommending approval of this application, and I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, just what's going to be proposed for this site?
We hear a lot of rumors. Whenever you're dealing with a site like this, you meet with people and you hear about what their goals are, their short-term goals, and that is the memory care facility and the daycare facility, and they are maybe anticipating those inline stores on the west side of that entrance drive to come in whenever they get that long-term tenant, so that they build the building kind of around them.
So what we're looking to approve tonight does what for them?
This is to create 4 parcels,
Okay.
2 on the west side of the entrance drive, and then 2 on the east side of the entrance
And what this
drive.
allows them to do is get building permits, and they are in
Sell
for a
them
building
off.
permit on the far east track, track D, which is the memory care and assisted living facility. I know Rob just walked out here. He's been reviewing those plans. He might give us the status of where those plans are at?
Well, we have done preliminarily done the review, submitted comments to the applicant, so they're responding, and it's moving ahead quite quickly.
Okay.
And we did hear that they will be closing on this. This is one of the last things they needed with the seller.
Close on the property?
And they're planning on closing on the property probably somewhere around the middle of October.
Is the applicant here? Would you like to make any comments?
I think that she just wants to make her available to answer any questions that you may have. He doesn't have a presentation tonight.
We won't know what our questions are until you tell us something. No, you don't have to. If you're okay with the way things were presented? Okay. All right. All right. I did not have any comment cards on this agenda item, but if anyone here would like to comment, now would be the time to come up and share your comments. No? All right. Seeing none, then I will close public comment for agenda item R2 and open up for comment from members on council. There are no comments. I'll look for a motion. Oh, Richard, I'm sorry. I didn't
That's
see you.
okay. I just want to, I saw some of the residents of the neighborhood right next door to Cypress Key, and I just wanted to make sure they understood the same thing, or I'm understanding exactly what's going on here. The situation as it is now, for everything to get done, it would all have to be done as one complete project, correct? So they would all have to go together, or we're breaking it into 4 separate parts. What is breaking it into 4 separate parts doing?
It essentially allows it to these separate parcels to be sold off to and controlled by those individuals that purchase the property and build the property. So the memory care facility wanted to control their own piece of property and build their piece of property, and likewise with the daycare.
Okay, and they wouldn't be able to do that otherwise if this did not happen.
You would not have separate ownership, correct? Yeah, the plat is to allow them to sell off the parcels, so the different uses that you all have heard about, that can happen.
So each of them will be presented as individual projects.
When they subdivide the commercial into lots, it's easier for them to sell. Doesn't mean they can't own it differently. We don't regulate ownership.
Right.
We regulate development. And the development that we approved is a development that has at least the 4 different sites with the 4 different buildings. Whether this is platted or not, they can be built independently together, whatever they chose. This does not regulate how they're built, but it does regulate. It divides the property up, and all we're doing is assuring that each lot is individual and has all the services to it. That's all the platting does. It doesn't regulate the type of development. The plat has to be consistent with our zoning. It is, and the site plan controls how it's developed and what's developed.
Okay, so basically, for the sake of understanding, nothing's changing as far as what can go on that property.
Correct.
That is correct.
And the change, at least my understanding of the change is, okay, one of the major things, in my opinion, is the memory care center, because I think that's a great use and something that would be extremely beneficial to the area. Right. This is making it easier for that, or facilitate that as an independent thing to be done, or whichever. It could be the memory care center on that parcel. It could be any of the parcels, but it's 4 different things that can be done at 4 different times, and it makes it easier to get something done as opposed to it sitting up there now with nothing on it.
Right.
Okay.
And there's absolutely nothing changing regarding the approved site plan by this council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Good question. Any other comments, questions, members on council? If not, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve regular agenda number 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R2 was approved 5-0. Good luck. Move forward. Agenda item R3 is a public hearing for first reading and approval of ordinance number 976, amending chapter 26, zoning of the Village Code of Ordinances in order to amend the definition of bar and/or cocktail lounge and restaurant, to provide additional clarity and distinction between the 2 uses, to create new definitions for nightclub and live entertainment, to provide specific procedures for modifying or revoking previously approved special exception uses under certain circumstances, and to delete restaurant with live entertainment from the list of special exception uses in the CN Neighborhood Commercial District. There's a lot to explain here.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you, but I think you've done a great job. That summation
I don't know what I just said.
really outlined exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. It's come to our attention specifically through police activities and code enforcement, that the line has been kind of blurred between restaurant and nightclub or activities that are late at night. So what we're presenting to you, we see more as a housekeeping kind of measure to kind of separate those two and make them more clear. It revises section 2622, providing that definition that you mentioned for nightclub, and then goes about explaining that ways that you can still have live entertainment in the commercial general district. It is still be, and it would still be a special exception. But this would really, the largest change is that recognizing that the CN, or the neighborhood commercial district, we just don't feel is appropriate for this kind of late night activity. So what you see here is several guidelines, as you mentioned, that would set up the ability to regulate those two different uses and also provide a framework for addressing any of those uses or special exceptions that are found to be invalid or misrepresented. And with that, I can kind of go through them a little, one-on-one if you'd like.
Hopefully you give us some examples of.
As you mentioned, the definition of the nightclub is right in here, and it is a commercial use which is deemed to be a nightclub by application of the factors set forth in this definition. If its commercial use reasonably can be classified as either a nightclub or some different use, it shall be deemed a nightclub, meaning that the purposes of this code example is if it's operating as a bar, a cocktail lounge, or restaurant during some hour of the day, but operating as a nightclub during other hours of the day, then it would be deemed a nightclub by definition. And let me just kind of give you more of a visual example. A restaurant by day, serving burgers and lunches and fries and things. Come late evening, they slide all the tables over to the side, bring in some live entertainment, and set up shop for a door fee and live entertainment, and kind of express themselves as bringing in entertainment for late hour customers.
Would they be selling alcohol?
Yes, yes.
So they would have the licensing already to do that.
Well, but typically what we see is in this example is that the restaurant applications get their ability to sell alcohol through the state by their ability to sell food right along with it. So it's kind of a little bit of a twist that's been going on where they've negated the ability to serve food or significantly limited it in real aspect to operate more as a nightclub or a full bar.
So you're saying that's what's happening now, and what we're doing is putting
Yes.
something in place that wouldn't happen?
Correct.
Okay. So they were operating, so they'd have to be one or the other.
Right. And if I could defer to Jennifer, she might have further specifics.
We prohibit, well, when our code is silent on a use, that means it's prohibited. So when you look through the uses in the zoning code, you will not see nightclub listed anywhere. So by the virtue of it being silent, nightclub is prohibited. We thought it was important, though, because we had some restaurants and bars that have been operating as nightclubs. We thought it was important to give a definition of nightclub to make it crystal clear this is the type of activity that is prohibited. So there's no question out there. If you represent to the village and to the state of Florida that you're operating as a restaurant, you must be operating as a restaurant the entire time you are open. You do not get to be a restaurant from the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then at 8 p.m. all of a sudden, as Rob said, you move all the tables over, you bring in a platform, you bring in a live band, and you have a dance hall. So we thought it was important to help PBSO and to help our code enforcement have these extra tools in our code when they're going out and meeting with businesses, but also when we have to bring them to hearing or take some other action against them, to have clear definitions in our code about what is allowed and what is prohibited.
Okay. At the end of the day, this is for the safety of our citizens?
Absolutely. The incidents that we have had recently are a threat to the health, safety, welfare. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
I did have two other items real quick. I did speak with Councilmember Valentis, was it yesterday, I think? Yeah. He had two questions, and one of them led to a suggested language change, which I am 100% okay with. In the section discussing revocation of special exception uses, say somebody misrepresents to you what they're actually going to be doing on the premises, you give them a special exception use, we find out later they've lied. We've created a process so you can take that away. If you were, after a hearing, to take that approval away, they do have a right to appeal, just like with any land use decision you deny things on. They can't appeal to the circuit court. Councilmember Valentis, there is other language in our code, which we'll see later tonight in the subdivision code, that provides much more detailed language about that appeals process, and he felt that, and I don't want to speak too much for you, but he preferred the more detailed language. So if there is a motion to approve tonight and you would prefer the more detailed language as well, just add that into your motion. So when I bring it back on second reading, I'll have the more detailed section in there.
And just to and follow up on the next item, page 32, section whatever it is, appeals. It's just much more thorough as to what people need to do in their appeal. It's on the next agenda item, and I read this one and I read the other one. I said, oh, the second one seems much more thorough and better, so why not just use it for this? And Jennifer agreed. I mean, it's the same standard, it's the same what you need to do, so keeping the language consistent just made sense to me.
Well, thank you for making us a benefactor of your extensive knowledge.
That
in
appeal
appeals.
stuff.
I know.
Wonder where that came
You know a little
from.
bit about, right?
But the other question that he brought up, which was an excellent question, and I did confer with Bradford on this, we wanted to make sure that in creating a new definition for nightclub, we're not somehow pulling in our own village facilities, such as the cultural center or our new Sunset Room at Commons, because they do have late night activities. I did talk this over with Bradford. We feel like the definition of nightclub that we're putting forward to you tonight does not pull in our facilities. It is limited, the nightclub definition is limited to those commercial uses in our commercial districts, those that are operating a commercial function. So our cultural center and our Commons Park, those are public facilities. And Bradford, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but. No, I don't. Okay.
Well said.
There we go.
Okay, so
that was it.
So my question is, and it was more to the example that Mr. Hill gave, is, and I'm familiar with some other venues that do it, where they're restaurants, they'll close the kitchen at 10 o'clock and then the band then plays. So does this prohibit that, or as long as food's provided, I can now bring out the music and still conduct the same way?
There's an outline provided that requires a complete type of meal. So you wouldn't be able to shut down the kitchen and just serve box lunches or anything. You would still have to have an entree with salad, and that could be done in a limited fashion, but it still has to meet the criteria.
And for live entertainment, they have to come get a special exception approval from council. So if they don't have that, they're
Okay.
operating in violation of our code.
So an example of that, if there was a restaurant that wanted to have a two-piece band or something, to provide background music, they could do that if they got the special exception.
Well, so there's two options for them. If it's a one-time thing, or maybe they do it every
Well,
6
a lot-
months, they can get a special event permit.
Okay.
But if it's a recurring thing,
yeah.
they do need to get a special exception use approval with you all.
And that would be permitted as long as this is part of their normal operations as a restaurant.
And you would be able to give the conditions of that approval. If you were suspect that it could get away from you, you might put time restrictions or different things like that.
Do we have a noise, is there a noise ordinance that comes into play here with that?
Yes.
They'll
Yes,
have to be compliant with that as well.
they do, yes.
Okay. All right.
And that's really for more of the outside entertainment options
Yeah,
that
well,
are, that are
yeah.
sometimes proposed, but these are for the interior ones as well. So, and just kind of to let you know what we're trying to address briefly is that anything with a cover charge, required contribution, a membership fee,
To get in.
like a bottle club type of situation, a minimum drink charge, without a special event permit, those would be certainly nightclubs. And then further down, if it wasn't clear at that point, anything with a dance floor, anything that's open between 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. With a maximum capacity of 150 persons or more, or who sells alcohol at any time during the day. If they meet 4 of those other listed criteria, then they would meet that definition of a nightclub and be prohibited.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
We've got
comments?
experience with that.
And I just need to read the ordinance title, Mayor, when you're ready.
Yeah, all right, then I want to open for public comment, Pat. You want to read it first, or you want me to do public comment?
Up to you.
All right, let me do public. I do not have any comment cards for agenda item R3, but if anyone would like to comment, now would be the time. Okay, seeing none, I'm closing public comment for agenda item R3, and
Thank you. This is ordinance number 976, an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 26 zoning to provide for an amendment to the previously adopted zoning code, specifically amending Article 2, construction of language and definitions at Section 26-22 definitions by amending the definitions of bar and/or cocktail lounge and restaurant in order to provide additional clarity and distinction between the two uses, and to create new definitions for nightclub and live entertainment, and to insert those new definitions alphabetically into the existing list of definitions. Further amending Article 3, Administration and Procedures at Section 26-31 Administrative Remedies by adding an entirely new subsection C, Modifications and Revocations of Special Exception Use Approvals, in order to provide specific procedures for modifying or revoking previously approved special exception uses under certain circumstances. Further amending Article 5, Zoning Districts at Section 26-88 CN Neighborhood Commercial District by deleting restaurant with live entertainment from the list of special exception uses for that district, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 26 zoning shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, and authority to codify, providing an effective date and for other purposes. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no comments, further comments from members on council, look for a motion.
Move to approve agenda item R3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Did you want
All
that
in favor?
modification?
Oh, that has to be
With-
read
with the-
into the motion, yes.
Yes, please.
With the modification to include the language.
To the
on
appeals section.
Page 32 of the,
Well, it's
However
page
you
8
wanna
of this one, but the appeal section.
I know. The more specific appeals language.
more specific appeals language.
You should have made the motion.
Thank you.
All right, we have an amended motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R3 was approved 5-0. Agenda item R4 is also a public hearing for first reading and approval of ordinance number 977, amending Chapter 22, subdivision of land, to amend definitions, update the application and approval procedures for preliminary and final plat, and to update development design standards for the subdivisions in accordance with current standards and practices, and further to amend the recreation requirements for residential developments, the subdivision variance process, and enforcement remedies and penalties for violations in order to provide consistency with Chapter 26, is which we just got finished updating. So now, let's hear what you have to say, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll have to admit that the appeal stuff we stole from 26, so I can't.
Wow.
So essentially, the update started because of the changes to 26 with the recreational requirement. And then we saw the opportunity to make updates to the technical side of the specifications. So I'm going to run through these fairly quickly. If you have any specific questions, I'll stop me at any time. So 22.3, we added a couple definitions to that for bike paths and on-street pathways. We defined the improvements that were required prior to CO and after CO, which we defined as Tier 1 public improvements and Tier 2 public improvements. In that Section 22.5 variances, we removed it from that section because it's going to be in 2266. In Article 2, 22.21, we updated that section to better align with the current operating procedures. 22.22, we updated based on comments from our surveying consultant. Got rid of some dates and north arrows, nothing significant there. 22.23, we updated to better align with current operating procedures. Updated fees, moved portions of Section 22.55, and eliminated partial payment for phased subdivisions. 22.24, that we updated better to align with current operating procedures. HOA docs were made mandatory, and clarifications to bonding requirements. 22.25, we updated to better align with current operating procedures. 22.26, we shortened the allowable time to record the final plat from 6 months to 30 days. Article 3, we changed the name from subdivision design standards to development design standards, and then we updated the definition for clarification in 2241. In 2250, which is a requirement for public and other improvements. We updated that to better align with current operating procedures. We updated minimum flow and pressure requirements for fire protection based on Palm Beach County Fire Department recommendations. Sidewalk requirements were updated to be consistent with the village's comprehensive bicycle plan. We updated lighting requirements for Illumination Engineering Society and FDOT standards. And then the village engineer is given the authority to release maintenance bonds in lieu of taking that back to council. 2251, this is the street and drainage construction specifications. We updated those specifications to better align with FDOT, South Florida Water Management District, FEMA, and our CRS requirement. We updated testing requirements to better align with FDOT. We updated minimum roadway material standards to better align with FDOT. Minimum sidewalk widths were increased from 4 foot to 5 foot on bridges to accommodate bicycle traffic. We updated storm drain easements to make the width based on a function of pipe diameter and depth. And we required sidewalks that are 8 feet or wider to be 6-inch thick concrete in lieu of 4-inch thick concrete. 2253 was deleted, which was the erection of buildings adjacent to unapproved streets. 2254 was deleted, which was mobile home subdivisions. 2255 was updated to be consistent with Chapter 26, which I alluded to earlier. 2266 was updated to be consistent with Chapter 26. And then 2267 was also updated to be consistent with Chapter 26. And then 2268, general enforcement, that section was deleted. And 2269, conflicting regulations, that section was deleted. So if you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to.
That was very informative.
You folks have been very busy.
We call that housekeeping in nature.
Okay, I don't have any comment cards on agenda item R4, but if anyone here would like to comment, now would be the time. Seeing none, then I'm going to close the public comment for agenda item R4. And any comments from members of council? And you have to read by title?
I do.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is long.
Okay.
Ordinance number 977, an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 22, subdivision of land of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Royal Palm Beach at Article 1 in general, at Section 22-3 definitions, in order to add definitions for bike lane, shared use path, Tier 1 public improvements, and Tier 2 public improvements, to insert those new definitions alphabetically into the existing list of definitions, and to amend the definitions for lip curb and swale in order to eliminate references to outdated standards. At Section 22-5 variances, in order to delete this section and move its contents to Section 22-66, and to provide that Sections 22-5 through 22-20 shall be reserved for future village purposes. Further amending Article 2, application procedure at Sections 22-21 through 22-26 in order to update the application and approval procedures for preliminary and final plat in accordance with current standards and practices. Further amending Article 3, subdivision design standards, in order to rename the article as development design standards at Sections 22-41 through 22-50 through 22-51 in order to update the development design standards in accordance with current standards and practices. At Sections 22-53 through 22-54 to provide that those sections shall be reserved for future village purposes, and at Section 22-55 recreation requirements for residential developments in order to provide consistency with Chapter 26 zoning. Further amending Article 4, administration, at Sections 22-66 through 22-67 in order to provide consistency with Chapter 26 zoning, and to provide that Sections 22-68 through 22-70 shall be reserved for future village purposes, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 22 subdivision of land shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, and authority to codify, providing an effective date and for other purposes. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments from members on council? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 4.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R4 was approved, 5-0. Agenda item R5 is a public hearing for first reading and approval of ordinance number 978, amending Chapter 26, zoning of the Village Code of Ordinance by adding an entirely new section, 26-75.5. I don't know why we had to do a .5, but it's new, but okay.
I don't know either.
Art, I guess it's because it's art. Art in public places. That's the name of the new ordinance. In order to impose new public art requirements on large-scale commercial industrial developments in the village and on village capital projects.
I will take
You're
this
going
one.
to take this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so this was a strategic plan item for this year. The council directed staff to go and research art in public places and present an ordinance to you all. So this is what we are going to be doing and talking about tonight. Ordinance 978 is this proposal. Now, we've been joking amongst ourselves that the requirement for art in public places is like half a page, but then there's 16 pages of administration for us to figure out how to actually enforce this. Yes, so anyway, I'll try to keep this simple. But there are going to be two types of developments that the art in public places will be required for. The first one is commercial or industrial large-scale projects that are subject to Section 26-73 of Village Code. Those are the ones that are over 20,000 square feet. The other types of projects that are going to be subject to this are the village's capital projects. So anything that you see on the CIP could be something that we will have public art for. But it will, I'm going to get into some limitations on that in just a minute. Now, the rule is if you have one of these projects that's eligible, the public art requirement for them is going to be in an amount equal to 1% of the total vertical construction costs of the project. So we're only going to be looking at projects that have vertical construction. So that will be eliminating some of your roadway projects, some of your parkland projects. Again, we're only looking at vertical construction for both the private developments and the village capital projects. Now, how do we calculate the 1%? Well, when we're doing a project or a private developer's doing the project, there will be certified engineering cost estimates for the valuation. They are just estimates of how much it's going to cost to actually build the structures. Then our building official, Rob Hill, he has charts under the Florida Building Code that he can use to verify if those numbers are in fact accurate. The location of artwork, how are we going to figure out where these things are going to go? We've added in a lot of definition into the code about these need to be installed in areas where a large number of people are going to be able to view them and enjoy them. This cannot be a little piece of art that's tucked away inside a private building that nobody's going to be able to see. The location of artwork will always be approved by the village council. It will be approved either through a master plan approval or a site plan approval, but you all will have the ultimate say in where that art is going to go.
So it will be part of the site plan approval process?
Yes,
Okay.
and you will always decide as a body the location.
Okay.
They do not get to just do that on their own, and staff does not pick that on our own. The aesthetic design of it, also council will always have a say in the final design features. So that will either come in on a site plan approval or it will come in later in a separate architectural approval. But you will have the final say on the artwork that actually receives credit towards this art in public places requirement. When must the art be installed? The code is set up that it has to be installed before a certificate of occupancy is issued for a project. We thought that was a good time. That was our last moment in time where we're going to have some teeth to make sure it happens. There is a lot of language in the code about how COs are determined for different projects. I'm not going to get into all that tonight. That's that administrative stuff. Also, there are number of criteria in how artists are selected. I took these from a lot of other codes. It seems to be pretty consistent criteria throughout the state of Florida for cities that have done these. You want to find artists that are capable of doing a public art project. Not every artist is going to be able to do that. Some of these are very large scale installations. So there are criteria in the code to make sure that the artists that are selected are actually able to finish the job. And then there's finally some selection criteria for the actual artwork. We wanted you all to have criteria to go off of. Art can be subjective, so we tried to put in some objective criteria for you all. Some of the highlights are, you want art that is going to be integrated and harmonious with a project. You don't want something that just sticks out like a sore thumb. It needs to complement the project. It needs to be durable, which we've defined as being able to last more than 25 years. We don't want something to just disintegrate and go away after a year. And it needs to be safe. Obviously, we don't want our public who is viewing this and enjoying it to be hurt or injured, if it was sharp or if it wasn't constructed properly and fell on someone. We have put in here, it cannot be commercial in nature. It cannot have commercial content. We do not want this to turn into a large advertisement for a particular tenant or the developer of a project. It needs to be of a non-commercial nature. And finally, we've put in here a lot of criteria about it cannot be indecent or obscene. For example, it cannot depict violence or drug use or nudity. Again, this is supposed to be something that is family friendly, that can be enjoyed by many people in public places. So that's kind of a summary of the code. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah, just is there a minimum size in terms of cost that invokes the 1%?
Yes, so if a project comes in and the total vertical construction cost for the entire project only generates an art fee of less than $25,000, they would not be required to do it. So $25,000 is going to be the minimum. So 2.5 million.
2.5 million or
Correct.
more. It's like the threshold.
Correct.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. And what about, this is not only for new projects, right? What about major reconstructions or renovations?
Yes, it does apply to renovations. There is a lot of code criteria about how you assess the renovation. You don't want to double dip on the public art requirement and charge people twice for the original building. So we've kind of worked around that
So
in
for
here.
example, if this ordinance was already in place when we started the new cultural center,
Yes.
it would have applied.
It would have applied. I do want to point out that this is a minimum for the village and this is a minimum for developers. Obviously, village council, you can always add more art to anything. If you want to have more than 1% for a particular project, you can do that. If a developer wants to add more art, they can. This is just the minimum public art requirement. I did want to point out one more thing for you all. We gave you some flexibility too with your capital projects. Say there is a vertical construction project that does generate a public art requirement, but based on that project, it would just not be appropriate to have art. Maybe it's in a strange location set off from a place that the public would actually go. Maybe it's a public works facility or something like that.
Something industrial.
Yes,
yeah.
we've given you the flexibility in here to reassign that public art fee. It doesn't get lost. It just gets reassigned to another location. So you can put it in an area that actually makes sense.
Okay. Before I take comment, and certainly I want to address the public comments on this, I have 2 comment cards that were submitted. Well, 1 comment card for item 5 and 1 for 6, but they're both, I guess, related. And the individual asked that the comment be read into the record. So the comment is from Barbara Powell, 95 Sparrow Drive, Royal Palm Beach, Florida. She supports the effort putting the ordinance in, but she recommended that we have a separate public advisory board to look at, to review this, rather than have it be part of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm just going to read her other comment for, can I do that for the next item 6? Item 6, which is appointing the Planning and Zoning Board to take on this additional duty, she doesn't support that. So that's right into the record. I have no other comment cards on agenda item R5, but anyone here would like to comment, now would be the time to come up. Seeing none, I'm closing public comment on agenda item R5, and Jan, you're up.
First,
You're a baby, kid.
First, I just want to say to Jennifer and all the team members who put this together, I know you worked really hard, and it is thorough, and it is well thought out, and you did a lot of research, and I give you kudos. It's amazing how many pieces are in here, and it is a big, new project. So super excited for the village and our residents to have an opportunity to see this take place and be aligned with our mission of the village. But getting into the nitty-gritty, can you just walk us through the timeline from a time a project we know that there's going to be art required to the pieces where the developer has to find the artist and the artwork, and then it goes to planning and zoning, and then it gets approved? And can you just, it was a little confusing.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm sorry. There
okay.
are so many different iterations of this depending on how a project comes in. If a project comes in a single phase, it's very easy. So let me use that as an example. So say we have one parcel of land that's coming in. There's going to be more than $2.5 million of vertical construction. So the building is going to cost more than $2.5 million to build. That's going to trigger our public art requirement. When that developer is coming into council for site plan approval for their building, on that site plan, they're going to show you the location of where they want the public art to go. So you're going to see right off the bat the relationship between the building and where the art's going to go. So you as a council are able to determine, does that make sense? Or are they sticking this art like in the back of the parking lot where nobody's going to see it and they're trying to be cheap? You're going to have an opportunity to kind of look at the overall project. And we thought it was important to let you see that with the site plan. With site plans, those do go to Planning and Zoning Commission to give you recommendations. So they're going to be recommending to you whether that's an appropriate location as well. So the site plan is important for the location. There's also the architectural and aesthetic approval that we require for any new construction. That can come with the site plan, or we allow it to come at a different time. A lot of times you'll see developers who come in just with the site plan and then they'll come with their architecture later. They can do that with the art too, so that if they're trying to find an artist or they're trying to have a piece of art commissioned and get the plans, you know, that may not be timed quite with the site plan. So we are going to allow them to come in at a little bit later time and present that design feature to you. Again, you all have the final say over the design feature with the architectural approval. For private developments, the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to get a first look at that and give you a recommendation. For our village capital projects, Planning and Zoning Commission will not give a recommendation. It will just, the architecture comes right to you, because in those situations, you're probably the body that's going to be commissioning the artwork. So it's a little bit different scenario.
For our own applicant.
You're your own applicant, correct. So once the site plan approval occurs, where you determine the location, and then you have the architectural approval for the actual design of the art, those are your two approvals. The applicant can go ahead and get their building permit. We'll know the total dollar value at that point in time, because they'll be applying for permits. Rob Hill will be verifying the amount of the construction cost. We'll know all of that. We'll have the certified cost estimates. They'll get their building permit. They'll start construction. They're not going to be able to get a CO and actually move in until that artwork is installed. And so that's kind of our final, you know, we want to dot our I's and cross our T's. They won't get that CO until they've met the art requirement. Does that answer your question? Okay.
That's great. That's great.
Just a quick question. Would we offer an incentive or a discount if they don't meet the requirement, but they're willing to do the art in public places? Or that it's not a vertical construction, that's that dollar amount, but...
We don't offer an incentive. Like I said before, any developer can do art. Right. We viewed this ordinance as kind of a first step. We are wading into this new territory, so if any point in time we need to make modifications, you know, maybe 25,000 isn't the right number. Maybe it should be something else. We kind of need to see how this develops, but this was our kind of wading into the water.
But I think you said you looked at a lot of other cities, and this
Yes.
is kind of a model that they had put in place for them.
Yes, the criteria using vertical construction costs, that's common. The one thing that we are not doing, that a lot of cities do, a lot of cities just charge a developer a fee, and then they take the fee and they put it into a public art fund, and then the city uses that money however they want. We felt it was important to have the art actually installed on site where the development's happening, because that's where the impact is.
Connected to the site plans,
Correct.
connected to, you want to get your CO, get all the work that you said you're going to do done.
Correct. So that's
appropriate.
one difference you'll see if you look at other art
Okay.
programs.
So is that the approach that Palm Beach Gardens has used? Because I think a lot of us are familiar with all the artwork that's associated with Palm Beach.
I looked very carefully at Gardens because they had just revised their ordinance. They were having an issue with a few developers who were trying to sell architectural features that they had incorporated into many buildings across the state of Florida as their public art requirement. So it was great that Palm Beach Gardens had just updated their code. I took that, and yes, you will see a lot of gardens in our code.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were there at the Greek.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, I just want to say that before I take a motion, that I'm very delighted that we were able to get this to come to a real fruition. We have been talking about this, I think, for what, a couple of years now? I'm going to ask Jan to continue to educate us on things that we should understand about this whole, the art in public places. And we've got now a framework that we're putting in place so that it's going to be sound governance and consistent and fair as we move forward. So with that, if there are no other comments from members on council, you have to read
Thank you.
first. Go ahead.
This is ordinance number 978, an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Royal Palm Beach at Article 4 Supplemental Regulations by adding an entirely new Section 26-75.5, Art in Public Places, in order to impose new public art requirements on large-scale commercial industrial developments in the village and on village capital projects, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 26 zoning shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, and authority to codify, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion that we approve agenda item R5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R5 was approved 5-0. Agenda item R6 is a related item. It's the first public hearing for first reading and approval of ordinance number 979, amending Chapter 2, Administration of the Village's Code of Ordinances at Section 2-75-24 in order to designate the Village Planning and Zoning Commission as the Public Art Advisory Board and assign the Planning and Zoning Commission such duties of that board as prescribed in Section 26-75-5.5 of Village Code. Before I hand this off, I just want to say that I think when we understand the processes, this is going to be incorporated in part of the site plan approval process. That's a crucial process that gets filtered now through the Planning and Zoning Commission. It just seems to be sound governance and consistency to have them take on this additional duty. And whatever training is needed for the commission will be provided by Jennifer. So with that, you're on.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, just like you said, the thought process in having the Planning and Zoning Commission take this over is to not duplicate effort. They are already our architectural and aesthetic review board. We don't know how much art is going to actually be generated from this. The village is heading towards a built-out phase. So again, we have some large-scale projects on tap right now, but we don't know how much into the future this is actually going to be an issue. So until we know that for sure, creating an entirely new board that may not meet very often didn't seem like a good use of village resources. So we did put a lot of criteria in the code to give guidance to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And as of right now, we think it is the appropriate board. But we can always change in the future if for some reason, it gets cumbersome.
Okay, I do not have any comment cards. I already read the comment card into record that we had for agenda item R6, but if anyone else would like to comment right now on agenda item R6, please come down. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment for the agenda item R6, and I think, Jan, you were?
Yeah, just a comment. I agree that it makes sense to keep it within planning and zoning for those same reasons you just mentioned. As we build the application for planning and zoning, will we add an element so that the person who is applying for the planning and zoning understands that there's the art element as well?
Absolutely. We can put into the application, under duties, that this would be one of the ones that, and we could get somebody with an artistic background. We haven't actually, sought people like that before, but this opens it up to that. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Any other comments from members on council? If not, you have to read by title.
Yes, thank you. This is ordinance number 979, an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Administration at Article 4, Boards and Commissions, Division 6, Planning and Zoning Commission at Section 2-75.24, Authority, Function, and Duties, in order to designate the Planning and Zoning Commission as the Public Art Advisory Board, and to assign the Planning and Zoning Commission such duties of that board as prescribed in Section 26-75.5 of Village Code, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 2, Administration, shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, and authority to codify, providing an effective date and for other purposes. Thank you.
All right, if there are no further questions or comments from members on council, we'll look for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item R6.
We have a motion and a second for agenda item R6. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R6 was approved 5-0. Final agenda item is R7, is an appointment of one member to the Planning and Zoning Commission for term ending in March 2019. Jan?
Okay, so we had two applicants, and I had the pleasure of speaking with both of them. They're very enthusiastic, and neither have ever sat on served on one of our committees, which is really encouraging to me. That means more people want to be involved in the village and going forward. So I appreciate new people who want to apply. With that, however, I am going to make a motion to appoint Adam Miller to the vacant seat, alternate seat number 2, with a term ending in March 2019.
Okay. That is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R7 was approved 5-0. There is no further business this evening before the council, so we stand adjourned. Thank you all.